peu au cours du temps. Oui, presque une dizaine d'indicateurs qui ont été développés. Nous avons fait les formations pour chaque module et aujourd'hui, c'est une sorte d'apothéose pour démontrer la fonctionnalité de tous ces indicateurs ensemble. Donc, mes collègues de Nairobi sont en ligne. Derek va faire la démonstration. Et au cours de la démonstration, évidemment, vous pouvez poser des questions. Et puis aussi, on va mettre l'application en ligne pour que tout le monde puisse avoir accès. Alors, au passage, on aimerait dire merci à tout le monde qui s'est mobilisé pour ce travail-ci. Et jusqu'à présent, on a toujours eu des records au niveau de la participation, ce qui est une très bonne chose. Et donc, aujourd'hui, nous sommes également contents de vous présenter cette partie complète de MISLAND. Donc, sans trop tarder, on va laisser la parole à mon ami Derek qui va nous faire la démonstration de la plateforme. Merci beaucoup. Yeah, Derek, up to you. Can you share your screen and start the demonstration, please?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ture, for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm happy that we've come to this end to finally showcase what we have been developing for this extended MISLAND service. As we all remember, we had the initial MISLAND platform, which was developed on the first phase, which had 5 indicators, but we went ahead to include more indicators as per the user request, and also to make some changes on the platform. So today we will be showcasing the developments that have been made so far, and I will just go into the demonstrations because for each and every one of the indicators, we've had in-depth trainings, and there are materials to come with that, as I will also demonstrate, where you can find all the guiding materials for using the platform and also understanding each of the indicators. So today's session will be focused mainly on demonstrating the system, and we will ask questions and have discussions as we go forth. So thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much for being part of this development and always providing your feedback. And without any further ado, I will just start with the demonstrations right ahead. So I will share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Can you confirm that you can see my screen? Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So for that confirmation, now I will start with the demonstration of the service from the very first aspect, which is the homepage of the service. And on the homepage of the service, we have all the information in summary pertaining the development of the MISLAND service. Again, I have to make an apology for having to demonstrate this on the yes, I have to make an apology for making this demonstration on the development server. As we are aware from yesterday, we are trying to resolve some access issues. This is the link. This is the official link to the site, but we can't access the OSS servers at this moment on the MISLAND using the official MISLAND site. But all the demonstrations I will do today will also be the same on this particular site that you can access once everything is up and running. So like I was mentioning earlier, we begin from the very start, which is the homepage. And a few things to note, we have the navigation bar, and on this navigation bar is where we can switch between the homepage and the dashboard, and also the user login, and which is very important also for in terms of tracking your usage, and also in terms of getting results once all computations have been queued. So, and finally, you also have your language selection panel, for which you can select whichever language between English and French. So this has been made so that the system is usable in both languages. Some translations are still work in progress, but to dive into the main component, I will make a login. And in this particular site, I will be logged in as Derek. And for new users, if you're not logged in and you need to register, still on the login option, you have this option of not a registered user, so that you can actually sign up to the platform. Yeah, so immediately you log in, it will take you to the dashboard, and some computations will be done, but will still stay on the homepage. So if you need some summary information on each of these indicators, it is also provided on this homepage. And some of the training links and videos, you can access it through this playlist that is also here on the homepage. And in case of any feedback, which is a very important part in this development process, you can actually send an email and submit it, and we will receive it on our end. Also, we can keep track of the changes that are being done on the service through the homepage. And I think that demonstrates most of the features that are within the homepage. Also on the very bottom panel is where you have the login and also a registration link. So for the registration, you'll have to submit your name, your email, your profession, the institution, your title, and create a password for your preference, a password of your preference that you can easily remember. So once you're logged in, we get into the platform itself, which is the dashboard. And on the dashboard, I would like to explain a few things. And one is to start with the tool. So on the very right side, we have the service, what we are calling the service menu bar. So these are all the listed services that are within the MISLAND platform. So we have the Sdg Indicator, the Vegetation Loss and Gain Indicator, the Forest Change Indicator, the Desertification Indicators, the Soil Erosion Indicators, and the Coastal Erosion Indicators. So these are the 6 main categories. And within these categories, we have other sub-indicators that will total the number to 10. There are more than 10 indicators if we have to count, plus the sub-indicators, to effectively assess different kinds of land degradation. As we are well aware, land degradation is not just one simple process. It is so many complex processes, and when they happen all together, we experience loss in terms of productivity of land. And that is the main idea behind this platform, is to try and analyze each of these processes and to inform to inform the users, to inform the decision makers on where to raise awareness or where to put mitigation measures. So, like I had explained, this is the service menu bar. And then after the service menu bar, what we have here is the indicator menu. So under the SDG, the indicator menu bar contains all these 4 subcategories, which is also very important. Above that is where we have the area selection panel. And for this area selection panel, you have the pre-selected boundaries. But in absence of that, if you want to use your desired shapefiles and boundaries, I will show you how you can easily do that from your user profile. And under the indicator menu bar, you have the summary statistics and the chart. So for the chart, you have a choice of which chart you want. So you can change your chart type if you are easily, if your preference is a pie chart, or you can have the normal bar graph for each of these indicators. You have more information on the system, which will lead you to the documentation. And then you have downloading the data in CSV format and downloading the chart in an image format. So this will easily download this particular chart, and you can use it for either reporting or any summary that you desire. This, on the other hand, will download the data in a CSV file, and you can open the CSV. You can open the CSV using Microsoft Excel or any other preferred software that can read CSV files. So that covers this summary, statistics, and chart area. And then at the very bottom, you have your notes, and these are notes on, summary notes on these particular indicators. And for each indicator, you'll have a different note, and this can be enriched with further explanations if that is desired. So that explains the components on the right. On the left, we have the map panel itself, and on the map panel itself, we have the map itself. And on the map itself, we have also the map control tools. Now, for the map control tools, you have the normal zoom in and zoom out. You also have your opacity control, which will control the opacity of the layer. This can easily assist you to make references to certain areas. For instance, if you need to confirm the land cover type, I could easily switch to, the third one is the base layer toggle. And with this, you can easily change from one base layer to another. So I'll just use an image for now, and together with the opacity tool, you can easily control the opacity of the layer. The layers that are on the bottom, or for some validation check. And then you can also download whichever map is being displayed using this save map icon. And this should download the map in an image format. So I will just save that and show it to you, because this is quite easy. So this should download the map with the details, the legend, and everything. But if you also need the raster format, you have the download data here on the very bottom of at the bottom of the download image option. And with this option, you can download the TIFF file, which can be manipulated in any other remote sensing application or GIS application. And then here we have a link to the documentation, which is also being updated to match the new system, as I will show you later. So all these controls that I have explained are actually on the updated document, from the user registration to the user profile and custom uploads. You can find it on the updated documentation, which also will be linked to the system. And an explanation of some of these control panels is what you can see. So this is a site tour of all that I have tried to explain. And this is linked to the documentation. So you can have an in-depth understanding if this session is not enough to get you acquainted with the service. So going back to the platform, one important aspect before I move on that I said I will demonstrate is the custom shapefile. So under your user profile, you will have you'll have the option to upload your custom areas, and these custom areas is in form of a zipped shapefile. So from here, you under this upload custom regions and shapefile option, you can choose the zipped file of your choice. And once that is selected, you can click on upload to upload the shapefile to your custom regions. All your custom regions will be listed on this particular area, and you can easily select between them. So I can decide to select one of the custom regions, and for this custom region, I could analyze any of the indicators, and that should take a bit of time, I think. Yeah, for this custom region, you'll have any of the indicators that you actually selected. I think that explains most of the controls. Lastly, we have also the legend, and the legend can be dragged on this map panel to any point, so that you can use, you can make reference to your layers and the legend without any obstructions. And I think that really summarizes the main components that you will use and reuse for all the other indicators. So in my next demonstrations, I'll be diving into the individual indicators. And I don't know if at this point there is any comment or question before I will proceed, or if there is any concern.
Merci Derek pour cette présentation. Juste, je veux clarifier que pour le moment, on ne peut pas accéder à plateforme sous le lien MISLAND OSS Online, mais la démonstration elle se fait sur le prototype, donc, parce qu'il y a des participants qui ont voulu user la plateforme maintenant.
Yes, thank you very much, Amjad, for that clarification. So we are experiencing some access issues. Again, we are very sorry. We were really hopeful that at the time of this demonstration, all users could be accessing the site. But currently, as you can see, we have some issues in accessing the site. And We've been trying to reach, and it's coming up, I can see. Yeah, so I think right now users can actually, oh, we still have a problem. So this will not be able to complete any of the requests because we still have to make the connections to the back end of the system. And hopefully this is resolved in time, but we will keep you updated and keep you posted. So this system is still the same system that I am demonstrating on this development server. And what I have to tell you is that for this particular one, we've tried to create full data coverage on the back end and also to try to update the data sets to the most recent years. And the selections will not be as different from what I am describing with this development server. So if there are no questions, particularly on the general guidelines or the site layout, I will go into describing each of the indicators and how to compute them. So I will also briefly try to explain the background for each indicator, but we've had in-depth trainings for some of these indicators, which can be found on the playlist and also on the service guide that will be accompanying this platform. And you can actually, in case you experience any problem, you can give the feedback or you can dive into the documentation. It is a very short and intuitive documentation for which you won't spend a lot of time reading. So on the service guide, you have very clear instructions on how to perform each of these computations. So I will just, as an example, I will show for the computing the SDG sub-indicator, following both the user manual and also on the platform itself. So basically, on the service guide, you have an about section which will give you general information about the MISLAND platform, and this general information has the links to the organization, the authors, the acknowledgement, and the licenses. You have a link to some of the data sources that we are using. You have the dataset encoding for the no data values and also for some of the processes that we are applying. And then we also have some of the frequently asked questions. So this documentation covers both the MISLAND QGIS plugin and the web service. So on the background is where we have some of the information about the SDG indicators, the summary methodology for computation of these indicators, and the step-by-step explanation in how each of the indicators have been computed and aggregated. Right now, I will focus on this web service guide, which is a guide to how you can compute each of the indicators on the web service. So to compute the SDG indicator, you can just reference this SDG indicator under the web service guide. And here you'll get clear instructions on where to click and even notes on some of the advanced options and parameters, as well as some of the outputs that you expect. And this covers the service very intuitively. So it's not such a heavy documentation. you can always reference to it in case you experience any problems. So the first indicator, which is the Sdg indicator, and as you know, initially MISLAND had been built to highlight or to track the Sdg 15.3.1 indicator, which is the proportion of land that is degraded over the total land area. Now, the Sdg indicator is an aggregation of 3 sub-indicators. That is the land productivity, the land cover, the carbon stock, and the final indicator, which combines these 3 indicators, is the Sdg indicator. So under this option, under the Sdg indicator on the service menu bar, once you have made a selection for your country or custom region, so for instance, if I select Tunisia and I make a selection for land cover, I will start with land cover because this will compute very fast. So for the land cover, you have a choice of either viewing the land cover for a particular year or viewing the changes in land cover between 2 years. I think for purposes of making this very fast and intuitively, I might just select a smaller area because I want to demonstrate very fast, but without having to take so much computation time, because some of these computations are very heavy and they might take some time to compute. So in land cover, you can choose to view the land cover for a particular area at a particular time. So if I, for instance, select 2018 and make a submission, this should display land cover data for 2015 for this particular area in Tunisia. To compute the changes in land cover between 2 years, we have to, under the land cover analysis option, we have to select the land cover change option. Now the land cover change option, you can select the data source for which the land cover data source that you desire, but I will also tell you that at this point, we are only relying on the SRCCI land cover, and any other land cover data set can be added onto the platform. So you can have this data choice option if any other data is added onto MISLAND, and now you select the base year and the reporting year. So here we'll select, let's say, land cover changes between 2015 and 2018, and make a submission. And this should highlight areas in which degradation has occurred in terms of land cover change. Again, if I go back to the documentation to try and highlight this. So if I go under land cover, you get the full methodology of how this is being computed. So you can see the land cover changes and the transition matrix. So if a land cover is transitioning from a grassland and becoming a forest, this is an improvement, and that will be marked as green, which is improvement. But you can see for this particular area, there was no improvement. And you can compare the 2 land covers between the 2 areas, and you can see that there's a lot of urban expansion closer to the area, as much of the area remained an agricultural area. So the next sub-indicator that we compute is land productivity, and land productivity mostly looks at the vegetation. And in this case, the vegetation is assessed using 3 measures of change. That is the state, the trajectory, and the performance. So the state compares the 3 most recent years to a baseline period. So it's actually a direct comparison between recent changes and the historic vegetation state. So this means that if I make a selection on the state, and here you have a choice to either use high resolution MODIS or Landsat data. So notice when I select on Landsat, I have a new tab that pops up here, which is the Advanced Parameters tab. So under Advanced Parameters, you have the option to select either NDVI, MSurvey, or Survey, which are the three indices that we use to assess vegetation from high resolution datasets. So I will make a selection for MODIS and then select a reporting period of, you'll have to forgive me, this has not been updated to 2020 because it's what we have on the development server. But what you will have for the other platform, you have datasets covering up to 2020. So in 2018, if I make the selection for purposes of testing and make this submission, I should get the results of the state of vegetation in 2018. So in summary, what the state does is it takes the three most recent years, that is 2018, 2017, and 2016, and then computes an average of the vegetation index at that particular instance, and then compares it with the average vegetation index between the year 2000 to 2015. So it's a two-step process where you calculate the baseline vegetation index between 2000 to 2015, and then also calculate for the most recent years, and then compare between the two. So using machine learning in this case, where we are doing a correlation test. So when the p-value falls below, I think 0.05, if I'm correct, you have degradation, and if it's above that, you have an improvement. If the change is in between, we say that the land has remained stable, and that is the kind of results that you can see on the platform. So that is how you compute the state. So you can have other productivity indicators. You also have the trajectory. It still follows the same selection. You can still have either Landsat or MODIS. And for instance, if I select Landsat and make a submission, I should have the high resolution output, although this might take some time to compute. Okay, it was faster than expected. And now you have your results according to the computations. Now, the third and last sub-indicator under land productivity is actually the performance. And for the performance, we are looking at the vegetation performance according to ecological units. And the ecological unit here is described as a unique intersection between soil type and land cover, and also by extension, the climatic conditions, because we expect that vegetation that is in one ecological unit should perform similar to each other. So what the performance does is pick the 90th percentile that is the best performing vegetation in an ecological unit, and compares all other pixels in the vegetation index to that best performing pixel at each ecological unit. That gives an indication of how each vegetation type is performing in each of those ecological units. So again, it's simple. Just make the selections for the indicator, for the data source and for the reporting period and make a submission, and you should get your results. So the performance in this particular area remained quite stable. And I hope I am not going too fast, and I hope that the translation is okay. So if I am moving too fast, you can also raise the concern and ask me to go over or clarify anything that you miss out. Is everything clear and okay to all participants?
Merci, Derek. Jusqu'à maintenant, c'est clair. Y a-t-il des questions concernant ce qu'on a vu jusqu'à maintenant?
On peut aussi utiliser l'option de la main levée. Si quelqu'un a une question qui ne peut pas attendre la fin, il peut lever la main. Et puis, on pourra justement, moi, je vais surveiller ça, ou Amjad peut surveiller ça, la main levée, de telle sorte qu'on puisse avoir une interaction. Parce que la démonstration, c'est bien, mais quand c'est interactif, c'est encore plus intéressant. Merci.
OK, bonjour. Alors, je vais essayer de, comme d'habitude. Bonjour Amjad, bonjour Dr Touré.
Oui, bonjour Madame Farida.
Hello Derek, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Madame Farida. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Derek. I want just to ask a little question. It's about performance on the map. In the end of the map, we see performance from 2001 to 2018. But on the when we ask for performance, we put only 2018. Why it's like that? It's not another time.
Okay, so according to because we made a revision on the Sdg indicator, and according to the guidelines, it's very strict on the baseline and computation periods. So what we do right now is once I make the selection on 2018, it should compute the baseline automatically for me from the year 2000 to 2015. So that is set as the baseline for which the comparisons are made thereafter. So a selection of 2018 does not mean that you're just selecting 1 year. What we have done is on the background, the system will compute the baseline for you and then make the comparison according to the selection that you have made. So if I select 2018, the information that is sent to the backend is that we take 3 previous years. This is, for instance, for the state. If I'm making the comparison of state, it will go 3 years backwards and select those 3 rasters, that is 2018, 2017, and 2016. This is what was happening even with the initial platform when you make your selection. So this time it's just making the selection more automatic before you have to really think between which 2 years to compute, let's say, performance. For some of the indicators, you will notice if the limit of years is not correct, then it won't compute. Let me show you what I am talking about. For instance, if I say I want to compute performance in the year 2001, let us see if this is going to be correct, because ideally we should have a baseline and a comparison period, or this will return an error. So really, it's not just a single period selection. What is happening, and because of some of the guidelines that we were trying to follow through, by the UNCCDs, you require a minimum, So you see, they say you require a minimum for at least 3 years in order to compute. But this 3 years is also relative to the baseline period. So I have to get 3 years after 2015. So that is why I am using, and that is why for development purposes, we were testing out to the year 2018, just to clarify that particular point. But it is a very good observation, and it is a change from what was there previously. So this way we can be rest assured that what we analyze each year, we only have a moving window of 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. So in 2019, we'll just compute 2019, 2018, and 2017 and compare it to the baseline that we already have. So the purpose is not to shift the baseline, because once you shift the baseline, you create a bias in terms of measuring land degradation and reporting the SDG. I don't know if that clarifies if that is clear, Madam Farida.
Yeah, it's okay, Derek. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Also, if I am moving too fast on the demonstrations, feel free to just ask me to go slower or stop me so that I can make everything clear. I see there is a...
Merci Derek. Dr. Mohamed, à vous la parole.
Merci, Amjad. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for the demonstration. Just a question. Maybe certainly I missed some of your previous demonstrations or training sessions regarding the selection of the data source. And then this is an example in front of us, which is the case of Ariana in Tunis. So I think MODIS is not a very good example because it's a very coarse resolution. My question is, regarding this, for the data source, is it possible to have, because I have seen, I think it's only MODIS and Landsat, is it possible to have also Sentinel?
Yes, it is possible to have any data source that we so desire and just add it to the list. The only thing that I must highlight is we've had to do both the remote sensing part, the data acquisition part, and also the development part within a very, let's say, limited time. But also, just to clarify, particularly for measuring the SDG, we have 15 years, that is from 2000 to 2015. And that means we have to rely maybe on Landsat if we have to go higher resolution, because Landsat has that historic archive. And if in future we want to advance and add Sentinel, that is also very much possible. And an opportunity I see for that is under the vegetation loss and gain, where we can rely on high resolution data sets. But for now, you can select on Landsat, and also for the vegetation indices, you can select between either of these 3 vegetation indices. So once you test this out on the platform and you see the results, you can easily give us that feedback in case it is what you expect to see or better than what is covered in MODIS. For this demonstration, I'm using the MODIS because it is what we have currently available on the development server. Because of storage issues, you can't create, we already have a physical server on the OSS premise. So we are just sorting out the network issues, and which I was really much hoping that today we could do this demonstration on the live platform along with all of you. But now I have to use this link to do the demonstrations. But all the selections will remain the same, and I hope everyone is just following and getting acquainted. It's a very easy platform to navigate once you get the hang of it. So like you can see under the land productivity, I have all the sub-indicators pertaining to productivity. And I also have the final indicator, which is the land productivity itself. And I can make that submission and compute the land productivity. So far we've only covered 2 sub-indicators under the SDG, and we'll move to the 3rd sub-indicator, which is the carbon stock, before we can compute the final SDG indicator for 15.3.1.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so yeah, there you have the results. Again, you can download the results. You can try and see the most affected areas by playing around with the map tools and just what has been overlaid. So you can see most of the degradation is occurring in areas that are bordering the urban areas, and most of the agricultural areas have remained stable for this particular area. Now, the final aggregation of the final sub-indicator under the SDG indicator is the carbon stock. And for the carbon stock, we'll also, we select, the carbon stock is computed from both land cover datasets and initial carbon estimates derived from soil datasets. Now, again, this is, I think, this must be a bug or something, but ideally this should be SRCCI land cover dataset. And on the advanced parameter, you have the soil organic carbon reference period for which you can select. So this is very much straightforward. You just have to select the data source and the reporting year. And you can also change the organic carbon reference period and make a submission, and you should have your results. So if I am to show you from the documentation how the soil organic carbon is measured from the land cover. So this is a summary methodology of the computation. So we take land cover changes and using each land cover transition has a coefficient factor for which we multiply to the initial soil organic carbon. So if it is some land cover transitions are labeled negatives, while some other land cover transitions are positive, and the value 1 represents stability. So if it falls below, if it is a degraded area, we'll have a multiplication by 0.1, which will yield a lesser value from the initial SOC. That is how we determine which area is degraded and not degraded under the carbon stock evaluation. And as you can see, again, it's, I think, some places which have experienced a lot of land cover changes is where we have a reduction in carbon, mainly the urban areas. So the final indicator under this term is the SDG indicator. And under the SDG indicator, again, you'll also have the option to select the data source and also the reporting period. And on the advanced parameters, now you have, because it's combining all these other factors, you have a selection of which vegetation index to use, which ecological data unit that you want to use, and also the soil organic carbon reference year that you want to use. And this particular selection should compute and aggregate for you all the three sub-indicators. I will just submit that so that it can compute and we can visualize the output. Again, this may take a bit of some time, but hopefully we get our results in the next few seconds. But that closes it for the Sdg indicator. And I think, like we said, so for the Sdg indicator, we only have two classes, the degraded and not degraded classes. And I think with that, you have the final aggregation of the Sdg indicator. So as you can see, for this particular area, we have almost a 50-50 degraded, not degraded status. But this particular indicator can be computed for any other area on the platform where there is the full data coverage. So that marks it for Sdg. Unless there is any other question, we can move to the next indicator, which is the vegetation loss and gain. So what you will notice is under each of these service menu, this platform is designed to accommodate as many land degradation services, and this can be added to this list. And what you'll notice is, because this is particularly for Sdg indicator, you can have a continuous list of indicators if there are any additional indicators under this tab. For vegetation loss and gain, we can also have any other vegetation loss and gain models and indicators to be added. But for this particular one, we only have one vegetation loss and gain model, which intuitively, again, almost operates similarly to the measurement of state, where to avoid the very sharp changes due to, let's say, drought events or, let's say, catastrophic events like fire, we try to compute an average from at least 3 years period, and also compare it to a baseline of the long-term observation. So with this, actually, we don't make the separation at the year 2015, but rather we pick the most recent. So we span, I think it's 18 years, and then we split the first half and the second half, and we do the average on both vegetation indices. So the most recent years and the long-term baseline year. And for that, we try to classify both outputs into percentile classes. And for that percentile classes, we compare and see if for a particular pixel, to the 10th percentile, those are 10 classes. So for a particular pixel, if the value falls by 2, which means it's a drop from, let's say, the 90th percentile to the 7th percentile, that is a form of degradation. But if it is an improvement by more than 2, for instance, it's classified as 5 due to the 5th percentile, and it goes to 7 in the comparison period, that is classified as an improvement. So for this, you just have to select the data source and also the reporting period. The data source here, we also have the high resolution data sets. And we have also MODIS as well. This is for huge regions. So for instance, we can try to, I will attempt to try and just do a full coverage for the whole country for Tunisia using MODIS and see what that yields. And I'm not quite sure if this will take too long, but this is the second indicator and the only indicator under the vegetation loss and gain. So as we wait for that to compute, maybe I could talk about the next indicator, which is the forest change indicator. And this is where we have quite a number of sub-indicators. So I will just try and open up another site as this still computes. And from this, we can try and see the forest loss indicator. I don't know if my internet is good enough because I'm seeing this is taking a bit of time. So I don't know if also in the streaming there is any bit of lag. It will take quite some time to compute the, yeah. So this is at least at the country scale for the MODIS output. And you can see, yeah, in most areas we have experienced some vegetation loss. Some areas have remained stable, but a huge chunk has experienced some potential vegetation losses over the past few years. So this is at a very large country scale, and the results can be refined by high resolution data sets at smaller scales. So I'll just go back to a smaller area and make a different selection for the next indicators.
Derek.
Yes.
Maybe as interaction, can you please return to the map?
Yes.
For Tunisia? Description, the productivity state between 2018 and 2018.
Okay. That is well noted. Okay, thank you. This is something that we must have missed on. This should actually be between the year 2000 to 2018, because at minimum you need that 18 years of computation. So and some of this,
the period, when we select the period, referred period, it's from, for example, 2001 until now, or I didn't get it clear.
Okay, yeah. So with vegetation loss and gain, we use what we call a moving window. So if I make a selection of 2021, for instance, reporting period 2021, for instance, I have to move 18 years backwards. That is from 2020 to around 2004 or 2003. 18 years back should be around 2004. So it will collect all the rasters between 2004 to 2020, and then split them into two. So 2020, 2019, and 2018 will be one category, which represents the most recent vegetation conditions. And then the other remaining rasters will be used as a baseline for comparison. I don't know if that is clear. So it's kind of, for the vegetation loss and gain, it's a moving window. For computing SDG, it's a fixed baseline. It's a fixed baseline because of the recommendations of the UNCCD. Unless the baseline is revised, then we can add the flexibility. The point is, and the beauty is, on the development process, we didn't fix it it's something that can easily be undone, to make sure that if in case the reference period is changed, we also just have to make some minor changes, and the selections will be according to what is the new recommendation. I don't know if this server is also experiencing issues, but now we have sorry for that. So thank you, Amjad, for your keen eye. At least we note down that explanation. I don't know if there is anyone trying to access the server through this link, now that, you know, this is a development server and it cannot handle as much traffic. So if there is anyone maybe trying to access it through the same link that I am accessing through, for purposes of these demonstrations, you could wait just a little bit until the demonstration, then you can also access it through this development link. But the service itself with the full data coverage can be accessed through this MISLAND platform. I see there's a hand raised by Ford.
Oui, bonjour.
Allez-y, Fouad. Bonjour.
Oui, bonjour, ça va. Je pense que ça déconnecte. Donc, ça déconnecte, il faut actualiser. C'est ce que j'ai pu actualiser une autre fois pour que ça fonctionne, l'interface, la plateforme. J'ai juste une petite, peut-être que vous avez répondu à les questions, mais je ne vous ai pas entendu. Lorsqu'il y a un diagramme en bâton, l'axe des X, c'est en hectares.
Yes, the measurements are done in hectares, and then they are converted to percentages. That is in terms of area estimates. But this can be changed to any units. It's just a matter of mathematical conversion. So this is very bad because I'm seeing the system has become very, very slow, and I don't know if there is any changes being made. So if there is anyone trying to connect to the development server, you can just close the connection so that I see if
S'il vous plaît, tous les participants qui sont connectés sur le site de développement 194, prière de sortir parce qu'il est en train de faire la démonstration, donc, afin qu'on puisse voir la suite de la formation.
Yes, so for the next, I think maybe if I may just give an explanation to the next indicator that we are to look at, which is the forest change. Under the forest change, we have 5 sub-indicators. We have the forest loss indicator, which uses high-resolution Hansen maps to quantify forest loss each year. We also have the forest carbon emission, which uses, again, high-resolution forest activity maps derived from this Hansen maps, and also uses a methodology by the JRC for carbon emissions to quantify forest carbon emission. And we also have the forest fire risk assessment, which looks at the thermal anomalies around forest areas, which has been filtered according to the forest type, the land cover area, and it also considers the population data. So whatever you get is thermal anomalies in areas that are highlighted as high risk areas for forest fires. And we will see that. Just crossing my fingers that this works. Sometimes these live demonstrations can bring problems, but we're very hopeful that this works perfectly. So let me just reset everything from my side, and then if there is any question, you can ask at this point, or we can open any discussions. You'll excuse me for 1 or 2 minutes.
Ok, merci Derek. C'est une démonstration en ligne dans une plateforme prototype de développement. Je rappelle que cette plateforme a été développée par l'OSS et le secteur privé located. On a identifié avec nos partenaires dans la région d'Afrique du Nord le besoin en termes de dégradation des terres, les indicateurs qui sont les plus pertinentes pour identifier la dégradation des terres. On a collecté les indicateurs à travers les réunions. On a implémenté les indicateurs qui sont 9 indicateurs qui traduisent la dégradation, parce que la dégradation, elle est un phénomène qui est très grand. Dégradation, ça passe de désertification, érosion côtière, forest fire, érosion éolienne, érosion par l'eau. Après, au fur et à mesure, à chaque formation, on collecte les recommandations, les feedbacks des utilisateurs qui sont très pertinentes. On a pu améliorer et approprier le service. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes en train de présenter la version complète de MISLAND qui a été développée dans le cadre du projet Geomorphology Africa et sera bien sûr opérationnel et on va partager le lien avec vous dès que elle est accessible à travers le site OSS. Y a-t-il des questions concernant ce qui a été présenté jusqu'à maintenant?
Can you all still see my screen?
Yes, yes, Derek.
Okay.
Eric, if this indicator is not, it's taking too much time, can you try another one?
It's actually not the indicator, it's the whole system. So I don't know if maybe it's trying to make the connection to, we're having issues with both servers. But again, just to run through the demonstrations, unfortunately for this other particular one, we might not really have to get, we might not get any results because here we have more of a back-end issue. But if I may take us through the remaining indicators and the selections that we make, if you can bear with me, perhaps not having to visualize the results at the moment. But what we have under the forest change indicator is the forest loss. And this forest loss is computed from the Hansen maps, and any other data source can be adopted and added to the list. And with this, you select the year of forest loss and make a submission, and that should bring you the results of all the forest loss hotspots within the selected area. For the carbon emission also, we have, this selection is a bit more complex because we have tree cover loss data. And the tree cover loss data comes from global forest change maps. These have also been developed using the 30-meter resolution Hansen maps. And with this, we compute what we call a minimum forest unit. And a minimum forest unit, I think from the previous training on carbon emissions, is what we described as the minimum acreage of a forest. So if we say 3, it means it picks the minimum forest unit on a 3 by 3 pixel basis, so that if each pixel is 30-meter resolution, that means it's a 90-meter by 90-meter, which is almost 810 meters squared, which is 0.81 hectares. And the threshold for a minimum forest unit is about 0.5 hectares and above. So that is the minimum forest unit here. And then we also have the tree cover threshold. So for each of the forest change map that has been selected, you can select a threshold for what you consider as forest, either 30% tree cover or canopy cover, or lesser to get more forest coverage. And then you also have the carbon stock per unit, per minimum forest unit that we will use to, so this minimum forest unit is used to compute what we call the forest activity map. So the forest activity map contains areas of forest loss and forest degradation. So the proportion of carbon that is lost by complete loss of forest is slightly different from carbon that is lost from degradation. And as such, we have a fourth selection, which is the proportion of carbon that is emitted by degradation. So this is 30% of the total carbon emitted per hectare of our per minimum forest unit that is selected by the user. So once all the selections are made, you select the reporting period and you make a submission, and that should return to you the carbon emission on the statistics and the hotspots where the forest loss has occurred on the map panel. Okay, taken quite a bit of time. This should be okay. I'll just try and see if, yeah, if that works, yes. So like I was explaining, so if you have all the selections made, these are pre-selected values, but you can change the values as per your desire and then make a submission. Oops, sorry, no matching rasters. It seems that there is no particular data for this particular year, but I think as we had shown in our earlier demonstrations, you'll have the hotspots for the forest loss and also the statistics for the carbon emissions. What you can see here, the thing is it hasn't provided any figures because the selection did not go through, but you'll have the summary of deforestation corresponding to this amount of carbon and also degradation corresponding to this amount of carbon, and then provide you the total carbon emissions. So that is the second indicator under the forest. And then we also have the forest fire risk. And for the forest fire risk, you select the dates. This is for continuous monitoring. So I can select the forest fire risk.
S'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît.
Yes, please.
Allez-y.
Oui. Les données là ne sont pas actualisées. C'est pas, ça, c'est l'occupation. Ce n'est pas le forest carbone. Le diagramme n'a pas calculé. C'est pas...
Yes. I think I made that. I made that clarification. Like I said, I made a selection for the year 2015, for which I know we have the available data set, but because the result that came here was no matching raster, I was just going to explain the expected results. So for these results to be cleared, the next results have to be loaded for this computation that I have made. So yes, that is an observation. But if you are following through,
les données, ça existe, mais peut-être parce que le système il n'est pas connecté actuellement parce que j'ai travaillé sur MISLAND l'autre fois et j'ai extrait la carte de forest carbone pour Tunis. Donc, en principe, ça existe même pour 2015 et 2018. Mais je pense que c'est à cause du problème. No much. En tout cas.
Oui, je
Monsieur,
pense que vous avez raison,
Yes,
parce que pour le moment, le système
I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm very sorry for that particular problem, but
non, c'est pas grave. C'est pas grave. Merci, monsieur Derek.
Yeah, and also, for what you have to, maybe what I have to make clear is for this graph to change and also for the map to change, this data, this computation has to be successful. Has to be successful so that we can have the changes reflecting. So basically the graph it's a representation of the map, but in a form of summary. So all the area measurements are made and then the graph is computed. So what you can see from the graph is a summary of the area coverage of each of the classes that are displayed on the map. So if this forest carbon emission aspect was to work as it should, we should, yeah, it's giving me a problem. Now, if this was to work as it should, the graph here will be a bit different, representing the areas of loss. And here we will also have a very different map. But the summary statistics, because this is dynamically parsed and coded, is what has been returned. So you will have the summary statistics appearing similar with the values according to the computations that have been done on the map and also on your graph. We will not, of course, dwell on this because now that we are having problems, I will just demonstrate the next indicator under this forest change indicator. And this next indicator is the forest fire risk. And for the forest fire risk, like I explained, the first step that we try to do is this computation is done on Google Earth Engine because it has to ingest the most recent data. And because they provide the most recent data in terms of thermal anomalies and also high resolution data, most of the computations are done there. So with this, we don't have to, it's quite heavy to load the rasters back to the system and it's a long download process. So what we do is we try and obtain the thermal anomalies in the restricted areas for which we have computed forest fire risk maps. And the forest fire risk maps are obtained as a combination of different factors, which include proximity to settlements. We also have the fuel load, which is determined by the vegetation type. And we also have it's the ignition, the possibility of ignition, which is now the thermal anomaly. And with this, you just have to make a selection of the most recent, or at any point, you can just select the date. So I'll just go 1 week before and see what the fire risk was like and make a submission. Now with this, the request, I need to be logged in for this to happen sorry. Perhaps the reason why I could not compute was because of the login. I will just try the last computation that I was trying out and see if that happens. Okay, still the problem is persistent, but for the forest fire risk, we also make a selection of the dates. So I'll just go 1 week prior to today and see the results that will be obtained. So this response will be sent to me by mail. And once I get the response, I will come back to the platform and display the results to you. So as I give it time to compute, we can go to the forest fire assessment. So the forest fire risk is meant to show the risk of forest fire in a particular area, but the forest fire assessment is a post-fire assessment where you select also 2 dates before the fire starts. So this means you have to have knowledge of where the fire occurred. So you have to make a selection of the start date and the end date. That is before the fire, because this uses a change detection algorithm, which is the delta normalized band ratio. And it makes a comparison between the pre-fire conditions and the post-fire conditions to get the acreage of the area that has been destroyed by fire. And with this, you can also make a selection between Landsat or Sentinel. So I do not have an area that I have particularly prepared for, but for previous demonstrations, this works as the old MISLAND system works, and you can make reference to the documentations. For now, I might avoid some demonstrations because of the technical problems that we are experiencing, but just note the selection and the processes for each of these indicators. So forest fire just requires the user to have knowledge of where the fire occurred, and you can easily, if it is within a certain area, so you can just select a certain, forest area and just draw. And once I have the area covered, I will select the pre-fire dates. This is July 2020. Okay, I might leave the data as it is and just make a submission. So this should also compute and send the results. Or if the area is small enough, it might go through with the computations and return the results. Okay. Yeah, so this has returned the results, but unfortunately I'm not getting the map. I don't know why. Yeah, but again, because there was no fire on this particular area, you can see that there's just an enhanced regrowth and most of it remained unburnt. I don't know why the map is not displaying. I have some serious problems now. Okay, but that demonstrates it for whatever we have here as under the forest service or forest change service. So we have the forest loss, forest carbon, forest fire risk, and forest fire assessment. The next service which we have is the desertification. And under the desertification, we have the Mediterranean land use model, which is the Medalus model that was also proposed as part of the models to be included on MISLAND service. And I'll just clear this custom region. Go back to say. So for this, let me select a different country because I know the coverage is quite extensive. So I'll try to make a selection on Egypt for this demonstration. And under the Medalus, again, nothing much changes. We have 4 quality indices to be measured. that is the climatic quality index, the vegetation quality index, the soil quality index, and the management quality index. Now, each of these indices can be computed individually, or you can have an aggregation of the indices under the environmental sensitive areas. So the climate quality index takes into account the precipitation and the evapotranspiration. And this uses the Penman-Monteith formula for evapotranspiration, and also the amount of rainfall, total amount of rainfall that is received throughout the year, to yield the climate quality index of an area. So if I make, for instance, again, I'll just choose a smaller area. Let's just go to this area, Kina. And under the Medalus climate quality index, I will select a period, 2018, and make that submission and see the results that are returned. And this will follow for all the other sub-indicators under this indicator. So again, as you can see, we have low climate quality index here, and I think the symbols are quite mixed up because this was supposed to be red. Now, so most of this area experience some low climate quality index. And the final aggregation is actually an aggregation of all 14 indicators. And as such, once you make this computation, also the computations are sent to the backend, and the results are sent to the user via a link, for which you will redirect you back to the platform to view your results. If I make the selection for this ESI, as you will see, which is the Environmental Sensitive Area Index, it should give me the message that the results will be sent via email to my logged in account. Okay. So I think that covers it for the desertification. It's also only one indicator under the desertification. I know we have other models such as the sand dune models, and all these can be added if need be under the list of desertification indicators. The next indicator that I will demonstrate is the soil erosion. And for soil erosion, we have two types of erosion. We have the wind and the water erosion. And for wind erosion, we compute using 5 factors, as we went through the recent training. All these 5 factors mentioned are the climate, the soil erodible fraction, the soil crush factor, the roughness factor, the vegetation cover factor, and finally the wind erosion sensitivity index. Now, for this particular one, at least I could use a selection of an area in Morocco, where I know we have some data sets. So I'll go to Grand Casablanca. And also with this, the climate, so these are the 5 factors that are considered for wind erosion modeling. And this last index, which is the wind erosion sensitivity index, is as a result of multiplying these 5 factors, and each of the factors has been processed to reflect the relationship between each factor and wind erosion. For instance, the climate erosivity has a linear relationship to wind erosion because climate erosivity is computed using the wind erosive force, which is the wind data in meters per second, and also the soil dryness that is computed from rainfall data and evapotranspiration data. So the climate erosivity is as a factor of the wind erosive force and the ability of soil to be eroded because of dryness. And as such, it has a linear correlation to wind erosion. So you can view the result of climate erosivity and all the other factors. The other factor is soil erodibility, which is also the ability of soil to be easily eroded or carried by wind, which is computed quite differently from the soil erodibility by water erosion. So again, you can make a selection of the individual factors or the final wind erosion sensitivity index, and you obtain your results for that. So again, this area experiences some very low because it's on the upper side of, I think, the wind corridor. But for most of the areas on the southern part of Morocco and also on Mauritania, we have the high wind erosion factors. And this is computed from revision of the revised wind erosion equation, but now this just yields the land susceptibility to wind erosion index, considering the 5 major factors that are considered when modeling wind erosion. That is climate erosivity, the soil erodible fraction, the soil crust factor, the roughness factor, and the vegetation cover. Of course, an in-depth explanation of this was also done on a previous training. And if there is any clarification at this point that anybody needs, I can clarify. Because if we go deeper, we might get into another training session before we move into the next indicator, which is the water erosion. The purpose of this training was to demonstrate the system in its totality, in its full version, where to find the indicators and how to navigate through the platform. And if there is still any explanation, I'm still available to give the explanation concerning these specific indicators and sub-indicators under them. The next indicator under soil erosion is the water erosion. And for the water erosion, we have also the 5 factors that are considered when modeling the Russell equation, which is the rainfall erosivity, the soil erodibility, the slope steepness, the cover management factor, and the conservation practice factor. What is just to highlight here is that the rainfall erosivity is computed based on the total annual rainfall, monthly, daily rainfall aggregated with the total annual rainfall. There's the specific formula for that, which is also part of the training that we did under the rainfall, under the water erosion aspect. And in case of any clarification, we can still clarify that. So we have the rainfall erosivity, soil erodibility. We have the slope steepness, which is computed from the SRTM. We have the cover management factor, which is basically vegetation. And then we have conservation practice, where we do the intersection between crop plant class and the slope in percentages. And then we have the final aggregation of this, which is the soil loss. And the soil loss aggregates all the 5 factors again, using a multiplication equation. So that is the computation. Oops. Again, we have some no data value issues, but yeah, this is what you get. We have a problem with the bounding box, but which is being counted as part of the statistics instead of the no data values. But you can see for some of the areas that remained slightly low, and some areas had high susceptibility to soil loss due to rainfall. The combined wind and water just picks the high areas of wind erosion and high areas of soil loss and yields the pixels that have an intersection between the two. So with this, you just have to select the period alone. I don't know if I can proceed to the next indicator or there are any questions up to that point. I know so far we've covered 5 indicators, and it's been different sub-indicators under each indicator, but this should now get you familiar with the platform so that you can easily find your way on the platform and provide any feedbacks that you feel is necessary to improve or change within the platform. And it's been a lot of information, but if there is any clarification with what we have dealt with previously, you can ask, or you can just comment on the chat. So the final indicator is the coastal erosion, for which we had training yesterday to finalize the list of services that are on MISLAND platform. For the coastal erosion, again, I will try to select an area for which I am quite sure we have data for on this development server. So I know we have some data for the Tunisian coast. And like I had explained yesterday, the coastal vulnerability index also computes its coastal vulnerability as an aggregation of 5 factors. And if I could quickly go through them, the geomorphology, which we say we obtain, the geomorphology should be a classification of the different coastlines according to the types, from fjords to lagoons to high cliffs. But because of the intensity of classification, the proxy data set that was used for geomorphology was the lithological data. So different classes for different soil and rock formation types along the coast, according to their erosivity values, was assigned for the different areas along the coast. And then we have the coastal slope, which is also converted to a percentage, and it's the perpendicular distance from the coastline. We have the sea level rise, which is also obtained from, I think, CCI, which is a sea level rise anomalies data. Then we have the shoreline change. This is the rate of accretion, which was obtained from land and water masks for the particular period. And then we have the mean tide range. The mean tide range was obtained from the ecological coastal units, and also the mean wave height, which was obtained from the ecological coastal units. And each of these factors can be computed for any particular period that data is available for. And what you have there is the geomorphology. So with this particular indicator, you can have a custom area that extends seawards to have an indication of where the changes might be occurring. That is the vulnerability of the coastline according to the geomorphology. The coastal slope, which we saw there is no much change, I think, around this particular area. Sorry, it's taking a bit of time, but okay. Yeah, so we have the coastal slope, and the selection will follow for the rest of the indicators. I will just maybe demonstrate the last and final indicator, which is the coastal vulnerability index, and make a submission. So, I mean, with this, okay, again, we have some no data value issues here. Don't mind the very high, because that is well out of the computation, but most of the areas remain within these three classes of very low to moderate class within this particular selected coastline. So this demonstration is the last indicator that we have. And this should provide an overview on the MISLAND platform and how you can easily go about it and use it. We have this updated on the service guide. And on this service guide, you can have an overview of what is where and how to go about computing each of the indicators and how to make the specific selections. It's not a very long read. It's just straightforward, maybe 2-3 steps that you need, and you'll have computed all the indicators. So up to this point, I don't know if there is any questions that I can answer to. Sorry about some of the small technical issues that we experienced. We'll just provide the information in due course if everything is sorted out, particularly on the production server. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being a good audience. I think I have come to the end of my demonstration, and if there is any comment, question, or addition to make, the discussion is open.
Merci Derek. Merci pour votre présentation qui était générale sur la plateforme MISLAND. En fait, il y a beaucoup des participants ont voulu qu'on l'aide à accéder à la plateforme MISLAND pour créer des comptes. Lorsque la plateforme MISLAND sera sur le lien OSS online, vous pouvez créer vous-même un login MISLAND et vous pouvez accéder sur la plateforme et manipuler tous les différents indicateurs. Cette présentation s'est faite sur un prototype. MISLAND n'est pas encore accessible sur le lien MISBAR, MISLAND Online OSS, mais il sera bientôt sur le lien MISLAND OSS Online. Derek, vous pouvez... Derek, si il y a beaucoup d'utilisateurs, ils ont des problèmes concernant l'accès à MISLAND. Ils ne peuvent pas créer des comptes sur MISLAND.
Okay, maybe just to come in, Derek has taken a commercial break, but he's back. To answer your question about the lag of the system, whereby when many users are connected to the system, it's prone to lag. That's not the case. It's only at this moment when we are having some challenges with the server, but once it's fully corrected and deployed, many users can do computation at the same time and still give speedy results. I think that was your question.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Again, I forgot to mention, but yes, I am joined in with some of my colleagues. That was Brian. Sorry, I had to attend to something very urgently, and now I am here. I think the question is on the accessibility and the usability of the system when many users are connected at the same time. Well, for the specification of the server that we have at OSS, we try to make a specification that can handle this many users and number of requests. I think for some of the technical features that we've been experiencing is because what we are using for the development is quite limited. And hopefully, if we resort the access issues with the network at OSS, then we should be able to test out the multiple user performance when the system is in production. So it's something that we are yet to test out, but as the previous version of MISLAND, we didn't have a lot of issues with multiple users using the platform. So this is something that I think we've thought about and put into consideration, and we'll also try to test out. We have a Google Analytics. We have a Google Analytics platform for which we track the usage of the system at any particular moment. And for some of the trainings and even the users that have been using the platform, there were multiple times where we had multiple logins and requests, and this could be handled very easily with the system.
Merci beaucoup, Derek. Prière pour les participants qui veulent recevoir l'enregistrement vidéo, la documentation, de nous fournir, envoyer leur email adresse dans le chat. Concernant les attestations, nous avons pris part d'autres activités, mais toutes les attestations seront envoyées à vous, ceux qui ont rempli les formulaires de satisfaction, donc avec leur adresse, nom, prénom exact, ils vont recevoir toutes leurs attestations. Bien sûr, vos recommandations, feedbacks sont les bienvenus. Y a-t-il d'autres questions concernant ce qui a été présenté jusqu'à maintenant?
I don't know if there's still any other questions I can answer to.
Merci, Derek.
Yes.
S'il n'y a pas de questions, nous allons clôturer la session de formation, mais nous restons à vos écoutes. S'il y a des feedbacks, des recommandations ou des questions, nous pouvons échanger via des emails ou même. Docteur Touré, à vous la parole pour clôturer la session de formation.
Merci beaucoup, Amjad. Merci aux autorités de l'OSS. Je pense au secrétaire général, à notre ami Moustapha, qui n'a pas pu se joindre à nous ces dernières sessions. Mais particulièrement, merci à tous les participants qui ont pris le temps de se joindre à nous pour toutes ces différentes démonstrations depuis le début. Je pense notamment à Dr. Sami, je pense à Mme Farida, je pense à tous les autres qui ont vraiment voulu se joindre à nous pour ces différentes démonstrations. Et aussi, merci pour votre patience. Ce n'est pas facile, c'est la technologie. Il y a des moments, ça marche très bien, il y a des moments, ça marche moins bien, mais vous voyez que les outils sont là. Les outils sont là et nous sommes au niveau de l'OCETA été très content d'avoir participé à ce développement de MISLAND. Alors, comme c'est un outil technique qui a été développé, lorsqu'il va être installé sur vos serveurs à Tunis, vous pourrez facilement vous joindre et créer vos comptes. Mais l'OCETA va être toujours présent pour supporter l'équipe Amjad de Moustapha, mais également tous les participants pour qu'ils puissent utiliser cet outil-là à bon escient. Donc, ça vous dit que l'histoire n'est pas encore terminée. On est toujours ensemble. GMS en Africa, nous sommes à la phase 2. Ça veut dire qu'il y a encore du travail à faire. Donc, merci beaucoup pour votre participation. On a eu beaucoup de records ici, parfois de plus de 100 personnes qui se sont jointes. Aujourd'hui, on était à un pic de 57 ou même 60 personnes. Et on s'est dit qu'il y a un très grand intérêt pour l'outil qui a été développé. Alors, nous sommes très contents pour cette participation et nous vous disons merci pour votre participation. Merci à Amjad pour le lead et puis aussi à tout le monde. Bienvenue à tous.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Touré. Merci à toute l'équipe locative pour leur effort fourni pour les formations, tout le long de formation et les interactions. Je remercie tous les participants, tous nos partenaires pour la mobilisation des participants. Je ne veux pas citer les participants, mais nos participants, Dr. Sami, Mme Farida, tous les participants qui ont interagi avec nous et qui ont envoyé leurs recommandations, leurs feedbacks. Ils ont amélioré le service de MISLAND. Je rappelle que toutes les attestations seront envoyées à tous les participants. Tous ceux qui ont rempli leur formulaire de satisfaction vont recevoir, Inch'Allah, leur attestation. Donc, ce n'est pas la peine même d'envoyer des emails. Inch'Allah, on va envoyer les attestations bientôt. S'il y a des questions, même on peut échanger par des emails. On est là pour vous appuyer pour utiliser la plateforme MISLAND. Bientôt, Inch'Allah, on va envoyer le lien sur le lien MISLAND OSS Online avec la documentation, avec toutes les séries vidéo et supports de formation. On va collaborer, Inch'Allah, pour des pratiques, des cas d'études, un appui. On est là. On va vous appuyer pour l'utilisation du MISLAND et la durabilité de cette plateforme. Je remercie toute l'équipe qui ont fourni l'effort, que ce soit participants, les développeurs, tous les intervenants qui ont appuyé le service de qualification des terres. Je remercie tout le monde. Merci à vous. C'est grâce à vous qu'on a développé cette plateforme et on espère, en espérant, Inch'Allah, de collaborer, Inch'Allah, ensemble bientôt. Merci à vous.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Merci, Derek. À bientôt, Inch'Allah. Merci à tout le monde. À bientôt.
Merci. Bonne journée, Amjad, Dr Touré, Derek, l'ensemble des participants à travers l'Algérie. Et je pense aussi aujourd'hui, on a l'Égypte, le Mali et les Tunisiens. Inch'Allah, à une prochaine. Et merci beaucoup pour l'effort.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Farida.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Farida.